growth is what occurs after we're born, postnatally. So long bones are going to grow lengthwise by interstitial growth, just like we talked about, cartilage grows lengthwise by interstitial growth. At the epiphyseal plate, bones are going to increase in thickness due to appositional growth around the outside. Bones are going to stop growing during adolescence, although some of our facial bones can continue to grow slowly throughout life. Cartilage definitely grows slowly throughout life, which is why you get big ears and nose when you're old. Okay, so postnatal bone growth. Where are we growing in length of our long bones? So interstitial growth requires this epiphyseal cartilage in the epiphyseal plate. The epiphyseal plate is constant in thickness until we, at like the end, when we're totally replacing it with bone. The rate of cartilage growth on one side is balanced by bone replacement on the other. And how we're going to look at this growth is the 5 zones that we have at the epiphyseal plate. So if we look, our diaphysis is right here, and this is bone in my diaphysis. And in my epiphysis, this is also bone on this side. So everything here so far is bone. Well, in here, in my epiphyseal plate, I'm hyaline cartilage, undergoing various states of stuff. So my first zone is my zone that's closest to the epiphysis. And that's my resting or my quiescent zone. And what's happening there is not a whole lot. The chondrocytes are pretty quiet. So this first zone, right here, my first zone, is my resting zone. This is closest to the epiphysis, and my chondrocytes are relatively inactive. They're resting. So we'll say they're pretty inactive. So I also have a resting zone right here. Okay, then my next zone is called my proliferation zone. And in my proliferation zone, I'm proliferating. My chondrocytes are dividing by mitosis to increase in number. So my second zone is my proliferation zone. And what's happening here is my chondrocytes are dividing by mitosis. So what does this do? It increases cell number, or I'm going to increase my chondrocyte numbers. And I've got that happening on this end as well. Okay, my next zone is my hypertrophic zone. Hyper always means like a lot or more, and trophy is referring to growth. So here in my third zone, I have my hypertrophic zone. And here, my chondrocytes are growing in size, and they're secreting extracellular matrix, and they're entrapping themselves in a lacuna, and they're pushing away from each other. So in my hypertrophic zone, we could say that my chondrocytes increase in size. So remember, my chondrocyte's sitting here secreting this thick, viscous, extracellular matrix. It's hyaline cartilage, so it's rich in collagen and elastic and reticular fibers, but I'm really thick. So as, like just a moment ago, here I was in one lacuna, and now I divided mitosically. So now I'm going to start pushing away. And this one who was here is also going to start pushing away. And we're going to start growing away from each other and getting bigger. Make sense? So that's happening on both sides as well. In my next zone, this is where I'm going to accumulate a lot of calcium and start killing off my chondrocytes to leave open spaces that can be replaced with bone. So my next zone, my fourth zone, is my zone of calcification, or my calcification zone. what happens here is we could say that the matrix calcifies, which is going to kill off chondrocytes, leaving big open spaces. So in my calcification zone, my extracellular matrix accumulates a lot of salt, calcium salts. Chondrocytes can't live in that, so they die off. And now I've got big open spaces. What can I do with those open spaces? I can ossify and become bone. So now, closest to the diaphysis, which is bone, I form bone. This last zone, I'm turning those open spaces into bone. This is my ossification zone. I'm going to write it up here. So my ossification zone. This will be when, in here, I've got my endosteum, right? My endosteum contains my bone cells. So my endosteum is right here. And so I've got bone cells right here. And here were open spaces right here. So I can take those bone cells and start laying down bone. Osteoclasts will start laying down bone matrix. Osteoclasts will hollow out my medullary cavity. I've got bone out here on the periosteum so that I'm laying down, as I'm growing in length here, I'm also growing in width here. My osteoclasts are laying down bone. My osteoclasts are hollowing out my medullary cavity. So, can you kind of see how that happens? My ossification zone, my bone cells fill the spaces and form bone. That's what ossification is. So how do I form bone? Osteoblasts lay down bone matrix. They entrap themselves in the lacuna and become an osteocyte who maintains bone matrix. Osteoclasts are helping to make sure that's happening appropriately, and they're hollowing out the medullary cavity as we go. So that as I'm growing up and growing out, so is my medullary cavity. Okay? So that's how the cells are working together to replace bone. Questions on that?
What not on that particular, like on resting, it says chondrocytes what?
Chondrocytes are pretty inactive.
Thank you.
And so what happens? How does a bone grow? From the inside out, right? Can you see that? So I grow from my diaphysis out. I push my epiphyses away. And that continues until growth hormone levels start dropping off. And there's estrogen and testosterone are also involved in sealing of the epiphyseal plates. So I slowly overtake cartilage and replace it with bone from the inside out.